Good evening.
Hello, hello.
We are resilient. We are war. And it's a Thursday night if you're checking in with us. It's around 7 p.m., plus or minus, 15 minutes.
Sure.
So, life happens, get things going. But we always get here to be with you guys, share some stories, share the good, share the bad, and, the ugly sometimes. And,
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk this week of things going on. And one thing I did want to add that I didn't get the chance yet is I want to add one more overlay so I can share with everybody. And something happened that was, pretty bad. And I'm gonna have to go into Facebook for 1 second and download it because I don't have it saved on this computer. So it's tough. Like sometimes, like I'll post stuff on my laptop and then I don't have it on the computer itself. Like the one that I do the streaming on because I stream off the PC.
Yeah.
And so when I don't have that, I feel like I'm unprepared sometimes. But it is the best way to do things, having everything between the two. And like I try using the cloud sometimes, but it's just I feel even doing that, like sometimes it doesn't load properly.
Oh, yeah.
So what I saw and what I've been sharing on the Twitch art especially is this. I made a image because of what happened yesterday or the day before. Let's see, image. And it's just, more of the same from politicians that like to, highlight veterans, go to veterans events, go to military events, throw on a bomber jacket, throw on, a military, hat, a boonie cap, and try to, act like one of the guys. And then when it comes time to pass things, they don't want to do it. And so I made this to really put that out there. And so these three gentlemen, each one has blocked the major Richard Starr Act. Each one has stood before their body of Congress and said, nope, we're not going to allow it. Nope, we don't want to let Richard Starr pass. Go back and kick rocks. But each one of these guys has done, you see, Rand Paul there in front of the VFW, national committee right there in front of, the entire, every department of the VFW, during a conference. You see them at USO shows. You see them, talking to, disabled veterans. You see them with the Air Force members. You see them with Navy members. You see them with Army members. They love to take these photo ops. And then when it comes time, they're not willing to, push for Major Rich Starr. And two things have happened recently. You've got the petition being signed. And last I saw, it needed 4 or 5 more signatures to be brought up for a vote so that the Richard Starr Act could solely be voted on by itself. And then you had guys that added the Richard Starr Act into the like a bill with a couple more veterans bills and things. But what they did is they put Richard Starr Act, but said, hey, in order to pay for this, which is a little weird because what Richard Starr does is gives combat disabled veterans who are service connected for their injuries in, a hostile environment, the ability to get both their VA compensation and their military retirement. Because right now they don't get their military retirement. That is not paid for because they get their VA compensation. So what happens with that is, you don't get the money and DOD doesn't pay. So I don't know why they're trying to take from another VA program to pay for a DOD program when DOD is getting, $1 trillion this year and 1.15 trillion next year. It blows my mind that they're going to try to take tinnitus away from veterans and they're going to try to take sleep apnea away from veterans. If you have a CPAP machine and it's working for you, then they're going to try to take those claims away from you if this new bill passes the Senate and becomes a law, the Soldiers Angel Act. And it's crazy that, Senator Brand put this together and put this out there, trying to make it look like he was, doing good with Richard Starr Act, getting it passed, when in reality, all he was doing is, robbing from future veterans, taking away tinnitus as a disability, taking away sleep apnea as a disability, and, taking away, people that have CPAP machines, saying, you've got a medical device that helps you, we don't consider you, to be, compensated for, your injury anymore. And, it's really, it's tough to sit back and watch this happening and see, folks are, all excited about it. But then when the wording of the bill comes out, that's when people really have to step back and say, hey, what is actually happening here? And that's when, you see that, it's not really good. And there's a poison pill in it. Coleman Nee of the DAV national commander, he put out a message last night saying, hey, we can't rob future generations to pay this generation of veterans.
I think that's one of the reasons that, love him or hate him, I do have to say I'm glad we don't have boots on the ground in Iran. And I'm just not for it. If we cannot take care of the veterans we have now, then we shouldn't be sticking our nose in places where more and more are going to get hurt if we cannot take care of them. And it's not like, I mean, you have to ring in your ears and you get help for it. And oh yeah, we're gonna kink your benefits. I mean,
$123 a month.
Wow. And it's unfortunate because the Coast Guard's hitting their recruiting goals, the Army's hitting their recruiting goals. Almost every service this year and last year hitting the recruiting goals for the first time in decades. And what message does this send? Hey, if we decide we're going to, and the thing that gets me is if they can take one thing, then it's easy to take the next thing. And it's easy to say, you know what, they really don't need all that.
If you start letting them pick from us, a little bit now, it makes it so much easier for them to do it more later.
Yep.
And side note, I got a new Mountain Dew flavor, blackberry citrus Mountain Dew. If you want to sponsor, I drink a lot of you. And I had a friend down south send this up to me because it's only in certain stores down there. It's delicious.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, all the stuff that's going on in the world, that's happening. And I just can't believe that we have to see, people putting out that, it's okay, they'll fix it later. That's how they did it with Social Security. We got to just get something happening for these veterans. They just need, some legislation to start, and then they'll fix it later. But how can we trust a future politician if the politicians now aren't able to do it?
Yeah, that's the problem I'm having. Why not get it right now so we don't have to fix it later? What a crazy idea that would be.
And that's why, I got the, trying to push the discharge petition. Let's see what we got here. Hey, honestly, can't remember who introduced me to you guys' channel. Saw you are live. That is the like button. Can't stay, but I'll try to hit it next time. Thank you so much, Digger420. Appreciate the stop by. Appreciate the like. Help us push this out to other people. So that way we can share the message with veterans and people to know what's going on in the veteran community and beyond. We got PTSD month right now. Just we'll put on resources for that. And like I said, tonight we're going to share some other channels too. So thank you so much, Digger, for popping by. And other people saying, that's what they're going to do with, just trust it and trust it. I can't, this bill has been, 5 years. It's been sitting on, people's desks for 5 years, going up for legislation for 5 years, and it gets kicked back or it doesn't get, pushed forward, and it's just, they're so afraid of it. Like, I don't know, why someone in the back is saying, we can't fund this bill for vets. And then, you see like everything going on in the world, like everything's, gone crazy and corrupt, even something as simple as like, Lego, like it should be easy and fun and collectibles. And you got CEOs over there with the dastardly, mustache. He's got the two twirls on each side, looking like a cartoon villain. And, they're stealing from people and old men that are, on their, trying to get medical bills paid with their Lego collection. And then police officers are just taking, people's word for it because of, a religious affiliation. And it's just like, it's just showing how, again, we have the most education available to us, the most resources available to us to be able to learn and be educated. But yet I feel like we're getting dumber and dumber. And like, we're not looking into things. Like, all they had to do was, Google, whatever was on the paperwork from a guy, instead of saying, oh no, that's a fake, summons, that, you're not a person serving an order. But as far as the Lego world goes, there is a good group out there. And if you want to not do just Lego, these people do all sorts of bricks. They do all the other kits that are out there, and they are Vets and Bricks. They're on Facebook and they're on YouTube. I'm going to throw edit this real quick so I can have it in the chat too, so I can share that. All right, so in the chat, this is their Facebook group, so you can find them. And they've got some great content. You go to their Facebook page and you'll see, they've got not just the stuff about, the Lego, but like they sit there and talk about different things that are affecting the veteran community. And if you're in their group, you can ask them stuff about, mental health, things like that, how you can talk to folks. And, it's just a nice group of people that, if you're looking for something to take your mind off the daily, grind, putting together something, getting your hands, on a Lego set or, the other brands that are out there. Sorry, Vets and Bricks, that I don't know the other, brands as well. But they've, put together some really amazing sets. And like, because of like the licensing fees and stuff like that, like some of these other companies have amazing sets out there, like that, Lego doesn't. And it's, it's really cool to see like some of these sets have like lights on them and things like that. And like, again, Vets and Bricks, just an awesome, community and awesome YouTube out there. And then another one that I saw, because tonight we're just talking about how appreciation can be like a force multiplier.
Yeah.
This month for Elfish Haven, we're going over, the, PTSD, not awareness, but action. Things that we can do to make PTSD easier on folks. Things that we can do to change the story from, a disorder to growth. You talked about, post-traumatic growth a couple months back on the show, and, it's really encouraging to see that. But last night when I read a study, it said that, when they asked people in a graduating class of ROTC, of cadets, what did they know about, PTSD? 83% of them knew about PTSD. When they asked them about, post-traumatic growth, only 17% knew about it. So, that, can change. We can get people, talking about post-traumatic growth and, the things the positive that can come from, a negative that you live and that you endure. And I'm going to do a share screen real quick so I can share like what I'm doing for the month. So I'm going to make us tiny so I can make the screen bigger. 1 second. Oh, it's bigger. And then share screen. All right, the post-traumatic growth tracker. So this is what I'm sharing each day on the social media platforms that Healthy Shaven runs. So you've got, as you see here, each day the objective. At the bottom, a different saying to be able to get you through the day. At the bottom, you can check off what you've been able to do, stress, your focus levels. And then you see up here, transition from a survivor mindset to a warrior wellness mindset. Utilize discipline routines, neuroplasticity, radical self-accountability to reclaim the high ground of the mind, execute physical checkbox daily. And it's just, something that you can do, if you can't do every day, you do 1 or 2 days a week, it's got, different things, affection, attention. It's got the 4 A's, appreciation and acceptance, it's got grounding exercises, cognitive reframing, and just all these different things that come together that really, make you who you are and part of the community. And, you're able to understand your brain and your life better by knowing what your triggers are, by knowing how to forgive, knowing, breathing methods. It's all part of, taking what you had and growing from it instead of letting it be a disorder that, runs your life. Do you remember when we had the ladies on a little while ago? We had Nicole and I forget the other woman's name, but she had said, don't say I have PTSD, you just say, it's something that, is there. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not part of me. It's just something that, is there. Good evening, Dodo.
Hello.
Dodo is out in the United Kingdom.
Oh, nice.
Up there in the
Who's World Cup team.
And then that was another thing. I know it's, we're jumping all over the place. My ADD's, hitting all sorts of levels tonight. But the World Cup, you're seeing, how folks are being brought into the US and some of these teams are being, strip searched and, basically treated like, criminals as they come in. That one referee from Somalia wasn't even allowed to enter the US. And it's like, this guy is, a professional referee. And I understand that there is corruption in FIFA. And, there's always been, money laundering and things like that going on in it. But, I never thought that it was at like the referee level. And like these guys are out there and like, it just seems like we're not treating these World Cup athletes, these countries with the respect that, we've been treated with in the past when other nations have hosted, like, and like to see how Canada and Mexico are welcoming in the nations that are staying down there and competing down there for this, the first round. It's night and day. Like, it's really weird to see everything. Northern Ireland is where Dodo is.
Well, ask me how I am Monday when I go to work and the cup's getting going and the trains are all.
It's gonna be awful on the commute.
So I'm reserved there, but I think we're being reminded, whether people want to admit it or not, that the U.S. is just not a soccer country. It's just not. I mean, the Stanley Cups going on right now are just ended. The NBA finals are going on right now. They really don't care. I hate to be like that, But yeah, there's a series on tonight that's tied 2-2 for the Stanley Cup. You got the NBA Finals going on tomorrow night, or Saturday night. That's what people are focused on. And then by the time the World Cup gets over, it's going to be time for the All-Star break in baseball. So they're competing against a whole lot. And I don't know about you, man, but it's spread all over the country, like everywhere. And yeah, you're going to have a different feeling in Mexico City than you are in, say, um, even New England. I don't know about you, but there's very little going on in Boston. I work in Boston, and yeah, it was there, but not like there wasn't any real FIFA presence outside of South Station saying "Yay!" It's kind of like, "Hey,
Yeah,
get ready for
there's
to
no,
suck."
welcoming teams in, no, like, I thought there would be like, whatever, nations were playing here. I thought there would be like, their base camp is set up here, and Milford, they're set up over here, and in Quincy, these guys are set up in Cambridge, and like they would have different nation like events, and have like basically like a street fair, have people outside cooking the different national foods and dishes, and and folks playing the games on TVs out in the street, and like the way that Framingham does the World Cup for Brazil. Like there's so many Brazilians in Framingham, they literally shut down some streets, and folks just go out there. And I watched a game one time at a Brazilian bakery. It was literally a bakery, and like they had a TV up on top of the cooler, and watching there with 50 other people. Like folks are just so excited to watch their team play, and have that. And like you said, that the U.S. just doesn't have that allegiance to the national team. I mean, the men didn't even make it the last time. Like, and the only reason we're because we're hosting it. Like, and then on the other side of that, the women, soccer team is so friggin' good, but they don't get the airtime, they don't get the promotion, and like they're just levels above their competition.
Yeah, man, just crazy, just crazy. And we'll see how the men's team does. I mean, there's people excited about this. Understandably, it was kind of cool seeing all the Scots here. That was kind of wild.
And then I'll go with the next group as we're talking trash about things that are going on. Is veteran trash talk.
Oh yeah,
so pull up the right one here. Oh, not that one. I want this one here. So veteran trash talk, and switch the banner for a second. Go back, delete, hide. Save. And we'll show this one. So, gotta edit it one more time. Take out the beds and bricks there at the bottom. And just have the website for these guys. So these guys stepped in and said that they would, share the our show with their group. They are much bigger on other platforms, not that big on X, but on X there are some active duty folks that basically play, influencer on Twitter, and I don't know how it's allowed, because when I was in the way social media and military service was, a very strict divide. You didn't do anything in uniform, you didn't mention your service, things like that. Like it wasn't really talked about. People knew that you were in, but you couldn't use your service to endorse anything or say anything. And you've got guys knee deep in political organizations, and this side versus that side, and the military wasn't meant to be political. The military was meant to protect the Constitution, did not matter who was running the country. It was gonna be there to support that doctrine that that created us. That we ensure to our strength comes from that. And it's just it's been weird to watch over the last 10 years or so a shift in things, and having these guys on a platform like that and saying things, and we've got guys that are that got hit in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar the other day from Iranian missiles. Instead of talking about that, people are talking about whether or not we should go into Cuba next. And it's like, what is going on here? Like, why are we just ignoring that U.S. bases were just hit with missiles? This is things that are affecting our military, and and if you want the veteran community to support, and like you said, telling people to join later on, usually the vets are the biggest recruiters for the next generation, and I don't feel comfortable doing that right now.
It's just challenging. On one hand, I think if there were a different president in the White House, we'd have boots on the ground in Iran right now. We absolutely would. And I think, the fact that we don't have boots on the ground is a very good thing. But by the same token, and yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to us showing Cuba the right way to do things. I think that would be very beneficial to have a country like Cuba friendly, where people could go and tour and entertain. And I think there's a lot there, except for communism.
Yep.
But I mean, we need to get our own house in order.
Absolutely.
If we cannot take care of the veterans we have now, who a lot of them got hurt in combat, the PACT Act alone, and the burnt bits, and all that, if we cannot take care of them without any reservation or hesitation, then you shouldn't ask for one more drop of American blood. You just shouldn't do it if you're not going to do it. And if you can go out and find money for non-Americans and support them, then we have a real problem. Real problem.
It's just we've seen what's going on, and so the things that the veteran trash talk guys I saw that was being shared is the stuff going on with the Vets Guardian.
Yep.
That they're still allowing them to operate. They're still allowing vets, so these guys, are out there and they're, sharing everything that's going on, the veteran trash talk guys, and sharing, that they're still sponsoring politicians. They're still funneling money into, events. And, they've made, in excess of over $100 million, yearly off the back of veterans, filing claims for them. They take, I want to say it's 5 months of your VA benefit from you if you get approved, going through them. That is a lot of money, depending on what the person gets for a percentage. And you can say that's nothing, stretched over a lifetime for a younger vet. And for older vets, they may need things, but that is a lot of money when these services are available for free through the VSOs, through the national organizations. I just. It really sucks to see, folks get pulled into this. And then again, for the folks at the top not to be doing anything, and, again, these guys online are just going out there and saying, this is what's going on here, I'd rather, watch people do this, instead of actually saying, hey man, these guys are ripping off our veterans, what can we do about it? We're just sitting back and, and saying, look over here instead, look over here.
Right.
That's really, disingenuous. And then let me shut off that last banner. switch back to us for a second. And this last podcast, we may know. Save that image real quick. Don't know if I uploaded it, so I'm going to upload it real quick. I got 2 more podcasts. All right. So one is H-Town. H-Town Vet. He's on YouTube. And he does a lot of slide presentations. And he'll share stuff. He used to be a teacher. So he makes understanding veteran benefits and compensation things and different. He talks to his chat and he gets what is going to be in the next month of things he's going to share and be able to go through it and break down for everybody. And he really does a great job of taking things and sharing the information. And he'll get a subject matter expert to to get it to him and to get him the information, and he'll be able to explain it to his his viewers. And he's got a small intimate group right now. And when somebody comes into the chat, he always welcomes the person in and says, hey everybody, welcome in Hellfish Haven. Everybody, welcome in Travis. It's really nice to see. Unless he's in the middle of something, then he'll say, wait till the end of his talking, and then he'll welcome you in. But it's just it's nice to see. He says that 5 or 6 people say hello, welcome. It's a very welcoming community over there at H-Town Veteran on YouTube. And he said he's got the he's got like different sides like this, like not now I'm pretending to collaborate, because he saw a lot of these these veteran channels out there say I want to collaborate, I want to do work with stuff. Or how many of them say that on their show to just somebody, and then you never see them work together in the future. You never see them go on each other's platforms. You never see them sharing each other's shows. It's just it's the nice thing to say sometimes, to be able to poach that person's viewers. And it's like there is a little bit of darkness to some of these these vet channels, and with the like the thumbnails, like the fear mongering that goes on with those. Like, oh my God, look at this now. The VA's doing this now. Stop, come watch this channel right now. Like, we don't need to be getting, guys in a hither and dither over every single thing. Pick your, learn in the Army, pick your battles. Which hill do you want to die on? Do you really want to go out there and, and do it because you don't want to wear a PT belt during, formation? No, you're going to go out there and you're going to, take an ass training for your guys, on something else later down the road, because, your first sergeant knows that, you don't speak up unless you really need to. You save, you pick and choose your battles properly. And, that's what I've seen, H-Town do is, he's out there sharing, he's out there, creating, shared another content creator, her vet voices, is out there sharing, the female journey through the VA and things like that. Her veteran voice. Sorry. And it's just nice to see, different things shared and all these things, come together. Like I said, if you get the chance, check out H-Town. Very welcoming, tell them Hellfish sent you. And you'll get a kick out of that. And then the final one that I'm very appreciative of is a podcast that folks really know. And it is this one here. It's Oscar Mike Radio. And if I'm going to do a screen share again, because I am really impressed with how your page has been, recreated over the last year.
Yeah, man. Always looking to do things better. Always pursuing improvement. And
so you got the latest podcast up top. About podcast episodes. Check out the blog on OscarMikeRadio.com.
Yep, that's a newer feature, and my son is doing a lot of the blogging work around that, and he's crushing it. I really appreciate what he's doing for me.
And the different times that Travis has been on C-SPAN, his YouTube, Spotify, and all these things right here, these different topics that he's covering, and it's really awesome to see. And he's diving in there and sharing these things that, we may not think of right off the bat, but, as you read into it, it really catches your attention and, says, hey, this is something that, I may want to add to my toolbox or I may need in the future. And then, just, jump on OscarMikeRadio.com. Like I said, you'll see Travis's face, as you pop on. And you can even listen right there. You can listen right on the webpage. If you don't want to go to any of the sites, you can learn about Travis's journey. And I know that, let me stop sharing real quick. I know that last year you had done the podcasting class. Will we be doing anything like that again?
We'll see. Just need to get through the summer. I may do that because one of my students from last year has almost hit her 1 year anniversary, and she's absolutely just really leaning into it. I really like what she's doing. Really proud of her, and it's called the Nancy's Nook podcast, and it's just a really interesting podcast about motherhood, raising kids with challenges. Her daughter had leukemia. That was some crazy stuff she told me about. So just really, really some good stuff. We'll see. It's just time consuming.
And now tonight, what episode and who do you got on tonight?
It's episode 495 with Anne-Marie Doherty of the Bob Woodruff Foundation. Anne-Marie was married to a Marine, got in with the Bob Woodruff Foundation, has been a CEO there for a long time. Just a really interesting perspective as someone who's a civilian working to serve veterans and some of the things the Bob Woodruff Foundation does and the story behind that. So I'm really excited to see what people think. I enjoyed talking with her. I learned a whole lot. And yeah, man, we're just throttle wide open all the time.
Now with the Bob Woodruff Foundation, I've had a very good experience with them. They actually they help nonprofits that are a little bit bigger than mine. They're able to, they want to see, you're in business for 5 years, what you can do with, tens of thousands of dollars. They want to make sure that you're handling things well before they sponsor and they go out there. And they just want to make sure, you're doing good with things. And with that, it's really awesome to see these guys, come together and do something. And they helped out a smaller nonprofit. So the Boston Veterans Collaborative, they took all the groups and nonprofits in the greater Boston area and said, hey, do you guys have veterans who are, dealing with, food insecurity, that are struggling to put, food on their plate, every month? We're going to do a grant from Bob Woodruff Foundation. And what they did is they, said how many, $50 cards, would benefit your community. And so we all put it up to, Colonel Notch at the time and said, hey, it would help us to have, 10 cards for, 5 veterans. And we would get the name and the branch of service and send it back to Colonel Notch. And, he would send it back up to the Bob Woodruff Foundation so they could, account for the grocery gift cards that were sent out. And this really made such a difference to the folks that were out there and how it did to, people's lives, that, when you're struggling with something to just put food on the table and you're able to go to an organization and say, hey, I need help. And, you don't have to fill out 10 forms. You don't have to do, crazy background stuff. You just say, hey, yep, I worked with you. I know you. Here you go. Take care. If you need anything else, let us know. We'll set you up with other programs elsewhere. And, that's something that, Bob Woodruff Foundation did for the Boston area vets. And, I'll always be, grateful for that, So I'm gonna let you go, Travis. Thank you again, for being there tonight. And if you guys get the chance to check out the other, shows, H-Town Vet, Veteran Trash Talk, Vets and Bricks, and of course Oscar Mike Radio will be on at 8:00 tonight in just a few minutes. We'll see you in the chat, Travis. Thank you everybody for watching tonight, and folks on the replay. We appreciate your time and your have a good night, y'all.
Good night.